Hello, everybody. My name is Armand Smith, also known as Raptura, and this is the first of many postmortem uh, postmortem game jam videos that I'll be doing, where I just discuss a game jam that that I was a part of, what we did right, what we did wrong, what I think about the project, what I learned, and pretty cool stuff about like the process of the development cycle of the game. This game was entitled Well. It was part of the Word Jam that Philly Dev Night actually hosted about 2 weeks ago now. And I'm finally ready to talk about all of the stuff that went into making this game. So one thing about Philly Dev Night game jams is that they are 2 weeks long. So we had 2 weeks from the day that the day that the theme was announced until the end, where we actually showcased our games and got some feedback from the different people who were involved. Posted on itch.io, which you can actually find on my friend's itch page right here. If you just go to itch.io and you look up the Philly Dev Night, and then you go to the Word Jam, you'll be able to find our game. So just look up Philly Dev Night, you go here, go to the creators, then you'll see it. It's in the Word Jam. It's called Well right here. And yeah, just some flavor, some really bad flavor text things. We actually submitted our game about 30 minutes before the showcase time. So yeah, so our game, Well, was a procedurally generated text adventure, which, as described, you need to leave a well. You got pushed down a well. You don't really know how, and the beginning is just a tutorial where you essentially figure out how to move around the well, and your goal is to get out. So I'll just start by showing you on the main page. So here you'll see a couple different things here. You see a text box. That's your log, essentially all the information that gets that both you type in to move as well as do different actions, and the game spits back out at you to giving you an idea of what you need to do. There is the top right, which is actually a map. Currently it's just a red square, but that will fill up over time. And then the bottom right is your objectives as well as what floor you're on. So as you see, it says you need to take the torch. You wake up in the dark cavern, you can't see much, but ahead of you, you see a torch that has just an ember left. So you should take the torch. Alright, so we go and we take the torch. Even the torch is about to die out, you should probably look around the room, and we should look around. Once you look around, you'll notice a little blue square on the right of the map here. This is actually the how the map gets generated here. So again, the entire game is procedurally generated. So where you end up, what direction you'll be going, how large the rooms are, that's all randomized, and each playthrough is slightly different. Although for this game jam, we could only do a certain amount of events. So that's one thing. So you see a bottle on the ground. Let's grab that bottle. And then we can look at the bottle. And then we use the bottle on torch. And you can see a bit better now. So then you can look around again, and it'll tell you that you should be going east. So in order to move here, you just type in move in the direction that you want to move. So here I can say move east. I can also say move right, and I'll be going right. And then it says you see the exit. You see the stairs to the next floor, and then I simply type exit. And I'm on the next floor. So as you can see, it's this floor 2. And then a bunch of stuff happened since I entered this room. So in this case, I noticed that there's a human skull on the ground. I rub against a stone table with a skeleton on it. It's missing his head. And I hear a door lock in the distance. So there's a bunch of other things that just happened. Since this room actually got generated to be one node long, all all the events actually spawn on top of each other. So in this case, I'll just look around. It'll tell me that, you know, there's a stone table in the room. On top of the table is a skeleton missing its head. So I can grab the skull, and then if I look around again, yeah. So the skeleton has no head. Let me examine the skull. And then there's like some flavor text saying like, you know, you do a handle reenaction, but you wonder where its other bony companions are, which is a pretty cool thing. So let's place the skull on the table. And then once I do that, the ground rumbles beneath us, and we see a stone slab in the distance, revealing a stairway. So now we can actually move out of the room. In this case, we can move left. There's like an opening here on the map that you can see. And all right, here's one thing about this game that I really did like. If you look around, if you're in a room like wider than 1 by 1, you'll actually see the entirety of the room. The rooms are denoted by the blue colored nodes, so you can actually look around the entire room to get some vision on the map, which is always nice. I gotta find the stairs. Alright, and the stairs the next floor here. And then we're in another floor. Let's look around. It's a 2 by 2 room. And the game pretty much progresses like that, where you're just moving throughout the different puzzles and trying to escape the well. There's currently only 3 floors, since we actually started development 5 days before the end of the game jam. Since for personal reasons I had to do other things as well as focus on my job a little bit. So we had a lot less time to dedicate to the game jam. However, I feel like we got a lot of things done and it's very polished. And yeah, that's essentially what was good about Well. So yeah, so what was done well in Well? In my opinion, like procedure generating the dungeons was really enjoyable. I've worked on other procedure generated games such as Snowdown, which I should be doing a postmortem on eventually, but no promises. Since the map will eventually fold in on itself for much larger maps, which you don't really see in this game since all the maps are typically small with only a couple of rooms. So how I have it is like the algorithm simply discards the room and regenerates if there's too many issues when generating it, and then just completely discards the map and remakes a new map, and it'll keep doing that as many times as needed until it actually has a desirable map. In terms of like event management on the individual nodes, all that stuff was handled pretty well, so you can actually put in multiple events on a single node, as you saw on the second floor with that skull and a table puzzle, and just assigning the events to a room, as in like as a group of nodes. That's also a pretty nice thing, because then you'll as a player you'll actually need to search around for the different elements of the puzzle in order to solve it. I feel like the events spawning on top of each other, that's not really a bug. I feel like that's more of a feature. It allows for more interesting gameplay in that case, especially if we wanted to push this game forward and make this more of a fleshed out game. The inventory system is a pretty good thing. You can actually use the different items in your inventory. I actually didn't show you, but if you actually simply use the inventory or bag command or items command, you can look at your inventory. You can always examine what's in your inventory, and it'll give you a neat little description of what's there. If it doesn't have a description, it'll simply say, oh, it's a torch. It has a very elegant design or something like that. So yeah, those are all the things I really liked about making this game. So what could have been done better? You might have noticed that I actually used some articles in that text. This is actually the patched out version of Well, where you can actually say articles such as the, a, or an. When we were actually showcasing this, I realized a lot of people, since English is such an article heavy language, when you use the word the or the, however you want to pronounce it, in everyday speech, people want to actually type that into the chat bar, and we didn't actually accommodate for that until after the showcase. So that was one thing that I really need to work on. In my mind, I didn't really see the difference between grab stone and grab the stone. I feel like it's more implied if you just say grab stone, but I definitely understand why the articles are important, especially like if you've been speaking English for a long time, you definitely understand like why you need to use articles such as the, a, or an. The thing about like scripting events, I know I just praised the scripting of events, but when doing event scripting, it made it really hard to do conditionals. So we actually have this giant stone puzzle here. It involves like the typical what to do as soon as you start the stone puzzle. And then we have like a green stone, a red stone, a blue stone, a black stone, and then we have a note that describes all the stones and what they do and how they work. What we wanted to do was actually have some sort of check to see if you had all of these in the wall at a time, because there was like a wall that you have to put the stones in, and each stone does something different to the wall. Like the blue one actually like starts flooding the room. And yeah, so we wanted to do like some conditionals, but since we're using more of a delegate kind of system where, and what I mean by delegate is, it's an anonymous function. It's not something that, is, just stocked there. All these methods get created on runtime. So, there's no way to check, conditions inside of those delegates, because these are essentially nested delegates, and you'll see some of that stuff, especially with the crowbar puzzle. Not the crowbar puzzle. There's another puzzle that I had that I actually moved. I think I deleted it. Oh, it is a crowbar puzzle. So the crowbar puzzle has this thing where if you pull a lever, you're supposed to have 5 turns before you end up just dying, since the water level starts rising. But there's no way to actually check to see how many turns there were, since this counter won't actually count anything. It's just it's essentially just like a temporary variable in memory, so it doesn't get stored by your computer to actually increment and actually display these messages. So all of this code is irrelevant. But yeah, that is how this puzzle was intended to be, but that's not what happened. So the first floor tutorial actually doesn't explain things like the inventory and bag, or things like you can say up, down, left, right instead of north, south, east, west. It also doesn't explain that the blue area, the blue nodes on the map are a room and not just the rest of the environment like all the other nodes are. Some people thought it was very unclear that those larger rooms were connected, and I attribute some of that to like the art and how like if you look at the map here, all of these are like closed off. Really, they should be open so that you can actually notice that all of this is connected. And sorry, those are just my notes from my blog that I'm sort of making a abridged notion on. But anyway, so the map the map isn't very clear to the player, and that's what I wanted to make better for the player so that they understand, hey, this entire group of nodes is one room. The puzzle is part of this room, not you're not just going to be standing there. You actually have to move around and actually figure out the puzzle. You have to find the different items in the rooms, take them, use them as you need to. A couple things more programming wise that we had an issue with was, especially with room generation, was defining what a room and what a corridor had. We know that like corridors don't actually have events in them, and we couldn't actually allow for corridors that have events in them. But we also couldn't let the player know that the corridor was a corridor per se. Like we just needed to, we needed a way to generate it so that corridors were shorter than the than like room sizes, so that you wouldn't be just traversing through one giant corridor throughout the entire your entire playthrough. So we had to give corridors a description, and in that case, like we eventually just said, why not just let them know it's a corridor? So we just say, okay, you're in like a tunnel, like a really dark tunnel. I'm not entirely sure what we said. Maybe I can look at it in my code here. Whoops. See, exit descriptions, room navigation. It's not room navigation. Yeah, I just say this is an extremely dark corridor. There's no point in trying to really hide that. So when I did that, I was like, okay, maybe we can just let the player know that they're in a room by coloring it a different way. So that's why we colored it blue, and we decided to keep the corridors white colored. And that's about it for Well. I realized Well is actually a lot simpler of a game, both to play and to design in this case. This is my first time experiencing creating a text-based adventure. So it was a very interesting thing. I learned things about delegate methods, nested delegates, text management, some more procedural generation practice. Although I'm more akin to doing artificial intelligence. I really like doing artificial intelligence, and I feel like the next game jam I do, I actually really want to work on that again. I can show you guys one last thing, and that is my Patreon account. So last week, I actually created a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/RapturaIda, and it'll be a link in the description. You can donate $1 per month to be on our Patreon Discord, in which you can talk to the rest of our patrons about my content. You'll also see a monthly newsletter of my progress, as well as games I've been playing and what I think about those games. Not too much of an in-depth thing about like the games per se, but it's just more context into what I already do on my blog, which will also be in the description. Typically I do a this month in review post for every month, and I still have to do June's, so I'll be talking about I'll be talking about some of the Ether project, some of the Ether progress I did, and another game that I was also working on for a little bit that I actually commissioned some art for. And then there's also some other rewards that you have here. My Patreon is actually plant themed, so you start as a seed, you can go to be a sprout, a sapling, or a young tree, and if we get enough patrons, I can actually expand these rewards for people who really, really want to dedicate their time in supporting me and their money and helping me out with all my endeavors. So it will mean a lot to me if you just donate maybe $1 per month. to help me out with all the stuff that I do here. At $5, you'll actually be part of the Patreon group on my YouTube. So I'll just add at the end of each video, or maybe I'll just like rotate them throughout the video, your name on a specific part of the video, for all to see that you're my sponsor, and that would mean the world to me. So thanks again for watching. This has been Armand Smith with a postmortem for a well, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.